Hello, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. I look forward to thoroughly disappointing you all with this presentation. All right. So what we're going to talk about today, guys, is objections, and obviously everything's going to be focused around the fitness industry. So, I guess I'll start off with first of all. So there are kind of a few main of types of objections, right? And I'm not talking about partner and stuff like that. I'm talking about like a category that you would put something in so that you can sort of figure out how you best go about, uh, I guess, to handling it. And the first thing would be, is it like a logistical objection? So if it's a logistical objection, you know, if you guys are selling, who here is selling expensive stuff? Put your hand up, like over $1,000. Anyone? Anyone? All right, cool. So if you're selling stuff like over $1,000, right? Sometimes talking to a partner is a absolute logistical objection. So it's something that you have to support and guide somebody through. You can't just beat them over the head with the mindset bat and say, clearly there's something wrong with you. You need to, put up or shut up, and all this kind of really, really crappy, I guess, sales tactics that people have used over the past few years. So that's the first one. So it's like logistical. The second one would be smokescreen. So that's essentially you just haven't done your job, right? And they're just lying to you, right? Or they're just being polite, right? They don't want to do the program. You haven't really put the work in. You haven't really wowed them with the offer. And the third one is fear, right? So a fear-based objection. So now, it can be money-based. It can just be like the thought of success can be super paralyzing for a lot of people. But essentially, you've got to first and foremost identify what category it's in, because if you push someone as if it's a fear objection with a genuine logistical, you will get ghosted. So who here has been ghosted? Right? It was your fault. All right, moving on. So, and the reason why I say that is because you just didn't support the person properly. Now, obviously, not every time it was your fault, but I like to control the things that I can control, right? And so I see a lot of people there have kids. I have kids as well, right? And so you got to control the things that you can control. Like we have to make sure that the environment that we put ourselves in is safe for them and stuff like that. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot that we can do. We just kind of got to hope for the best, right? And it's the same with sales and objection handling. So what if I assume that everything's my fault, right? Everything, and that's everything to do with my business in general. I just assume that everything is my fault. If a client doesn't get results, if a client leaves me, if whatever it is, I go, okay, well, let's have a look at the learning lessons that we can do. So if I don't sell someone, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, what could I have done better in that situation to support that person through it? And ego plays a huge role in that, but we'll go into that later as well. So you have to identify those, because if you start beating someone over the head with a fear bat and going like, you need to push through, but they have a genuine logistical objection that has to be sorted out, you're 100% going to lose that person every single time. Right. And so we have to have a process in place where we can identify that and then help and support that person through it. So we actually get follow-up sales. Right. Raise your hand if you've been ghosted in the last 6 months. Right. I didn't raise my hand. I don't get ghosted because I'm super nice to people. Right. Right. And so I might not sell them on the first time, and that's fine. But I have a really, really nice, consistent, persistent follow up through. And I'll tell you how I learned that lesson. Right. So it was about, I would say about a year ago, I was selling full time business coaching, not for myself. I don't really sell much of my own stuff. I sell other people's stuff. That's kind of what I do. Right. And it was I just been hit with, like, I was usually selling around 25 to 30 business coaching programs a month, right? Which was great because I made $2,000 commission per sale, right? And so I was going through doing my thing, and then all of a sudden I have like 12 people pull out, right? And there was a couple of things going on at the time, so a lot of it kind of made sense and it was okay, but I was super frustrated, right? And so this one guy said, "Hey man, like, yep, I'm 100%. Let's do it." And I was like, "Sweet, let's take your payment details." He's like, "My business partner's got my card." You know, everyone's heard that one, right? So I was like, "Okay, sweet." So anyway, we booked in a call for 7 p.m. that night so that we could take the payment details. And sure enough, he didn't pick up, right? And so called him the next day, didn't pick up, texted him, and then I emailed him like 2 days later, and I was like, "Hey man, it's pretty disrespectful. I feel like we had a good conversation. I would have hoped for better. You know what I mean?" And then he like slammed me back on the email, and it was like, "Hey man, like, little ones cover your ears. Fuck you." And this is the reasons why, because he had some personal stuff that went on in between now and then. He had every intention of signing up, and he was super disappointed that instead of like reaching out to him to say, hey, how can I support you? Is everything okay? I decided just to go the route of like my own ego and just let him know what I thought. Right. Which is entirely unproductive. And when I look back on that, I go, and then he actually ended up going around me and signing up direct with the business owner. Right. So it made me look like a dick to the business owner, and I lost $2,000. Right. But it was a fantastic lesson, because after that, I never did it again. And so I took that lesson on board, and I was like, wow, like, I don't know what that other person's going through. I don't know what their circumstances in. So for me to put a motivation on somebody that I don't really understand is entirely unproductive and just there to make myself feel better. Right? Has anyone ever done something to a prospect just to make themselves feel better without really thinking about the consequences? Right? I know I have. Right? And it's a bad habit. So from here on out, from like working our way forward, we want to make decisions in our sales not based off ego, but based off how to make the most amount of sales over the long term. Make sense? Sweet. So that was a great lesson. Okay, so logistical objections. So the most common one is going to be money and partner, and again, it depends on how much you sell for. Right? If you sell like lower price programs, like say 297, stuff like that, those are usually not going to be genuine logistical objections, because most people have got that, or if they don't, like, they're probably not going to be the best client moving forward if they have to borrow $297, right? So, sell them if you want, but just be aware. So we have to have a plan in place to be able, and we have to have an objection handling strategy that is supportive, and it stops handling objections and starts fixing problems, right? And so when I handle objections, the first thing that I do, let me get my little SOP, is I identify it, right? So we're going to put it in one of those three categories. And I'm like, okay, is it fear? Is it smokescreen? Or is it logistical? And I'm like, okay, ask a couple of questions, like, and the main thing that I do is reaffirm their want to do the program, right? So let me just get this right, Sam. If your partner was next to you right now and they were on board, would this be the answer for you? Well, yeah. Okay. Could you just sort of tell me why, and what it is specifically about what we do that you think will kind of solve a few of these problems, and then get them to tell you. So then essentially, like, you're just reaffirming, okay, this is what you want to do. Because as soon as you reaffirm it's what you want to do, you're no longer handling objection. It's not two sides of, playing ping pong back and forth, trying to like logic each other into someone giving in. It's two people on the same side trying to figure out a framework that's going to work moving forward, okay, and solving a problem together. Okay, so reaffirm, use their objection. If it, like, that's what you do. If it was partner, if it was money, go, okay, like, I guess from what you told me, I can understand that money might be the issue, but if you did have the funding available for this, would this be the answer for you? Okay, so again, reaffirm their want to do it, right? And then just figure out it's just a problem that we have to solve. That's all it is. But it's a very different problem if they don't really want to do it, right? Or if they just don't think it's a right fit. So you've really got to understand that, right? The next thing you would do is then ask them how. I always ask them how we think we can overcome that. It's like, okay, so, okay, that makes sense. I can see why you think that this would be a program for you. And given that money is kind of the only issue, are there any ways that you think that we can sort of bridge that gap with the funding to be able to allow you to learn the skills that you need to achieve XYZ result, right? And that learn the skills is a very important line, because it takes it away from doing the program and puts it towards like learning skills that are needed to do a program. So whether it's your program or another, they're all going to cost money, right? But you don't want to say it in that way, but you want to say, what are some ways that, we think that we can solve the problem of getting the funding to be able to learn the skills that you need. And then usually people will come up with a couple of ways. They're like, oh, well, and that's when you can drop a payment plan, which is why you always want to pitch the paid in full, right? If you pitch the payment plan, where are you going to go? You're going to break it down to daily. It doesn't really, there's nothing you can do with that, right? So, and you can, so if I was able to, to give you a payment plan, would that be helpful to you? Well, yeah, it would. Okay, would you like me to discuss it? Yes, I would. Okay, well, here's what we can do for you, right? And then from there. And so I find that when you turn the objection into a problem and then figure out with them how to move forward, even if you don't get them on that day, you'll be able to get maximum commitment on that day. and then actually have a follow-up because you feel like you're on the same team, right? Whereas if you hit people over the head with a mindset bat, like so many other sales sort of gurus talk about, which is like a lot of that straight line persuasion stuff, and it's all about logic traps, right? Does everyone understand the term logic trap? Right? So logic trap is where you kind of, it's a loop, right? So it's just like a debate tactic. It doesn't change someone's mind. And as Dale Carnegie says, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still, right? So you can get people to say the words that you want them to say, but changing their mind is a very different thing. Like I could have a conversation with any of you, ask you a series of questions to get you to say anything, right? Because you just ask a series that only has one outcome at the end. So whether it's not, I want to convince you that you're broke or whatever, the sky is purple, right? If you have a series of questions that there's only one logical answer at the end, whether it's correct or not, you would have to contradict yourself to say anything but the thing I want you to say at the end, right? That's a very common sales tactic, and it does work, and there is a place for it. However, it doesn't create good clients. It just creates people who sign up and pay, which is very different. Whereas what we want to do as coaches, especially in the fitness industry, is take people through a conversation where they feel like, I guess, like for the first time, they're actually going to take the steps that are required to be able to get the job done. And that's where like a much less combative, much more supportive and like empathetical, less logistical type of selling is far more effective, right? Makes sense. Anyone got any questions on that stuff before I kind of move on to some of the other things? No? Feel free. Raise your hand. Unmute yourself. No? You guys are all savages. All right. Good to go. Okay. So that's how I'd handle money with partner. It's very, very similar, right? So with partner, it's okay. Again, figure out which one it is. And then if it's logistical, listen, if you sell a really expensive program, like for example, like most of my training is around for like one-on-one stuff, like it's around 10,000, right? And so some people really do have to talk to their partner about that. Like that's completely fair, and I don't see a problem with that. As long as we can like get a genuine agreement that we want to move forward, then there are options that people can take. They can leave a refundable deposit or a non-refundable deposit. They can put credit card down. There's a bunch of things that you can do. Or if they don't feel comfortable doing that because they really have to check and they're not really sure, then what we do is we work on the problem together. So, okay, like, let me just get this right. If your partner was here and they were on board, would you want to do it? Okay, why? Okay, great. So do you feel like your partner is supportive of you learning the skills for you to achieve XYZ? Well, yeah, I do. Okay, could you just tell me why you feel that way? Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. And I guess moving forward, we have a couple of options, but what do you think is the best way to move forward so that when you, I guess, go to bed tonight, you know that like you're doing the best that you can to achieve XYZ goals so you can, insert emotional driver here, right? Like, do you feel it'd be appropriate to kind of leave a sort of refundable deposit and then book in a chat for 24 hours time? Right. And like when you talk like that, like it doesn't seem salesy and pushy, right? And if they're not comfortable, that's okay. Right. If it's a genuine logistical, you have to sort of walk the knife edge of like supporting, still pushing to get commitment. But if you try and push too hard, you're going to lose them 100% of the time. Right. And they're just going to ghost you. They're not even going to reply. And so like supporting them through that process and then asking them the questions like, okay, well, that's totally fine. So I guess like, how do you think you feel like you're going to approach your partner about this? And they're going to go, well, I'm going to say this and this and this, and be like, well, do you mind if I make a suggestion? Okay. And this is the same way that I get people to refer to me. So when it's the exact same process. When people like, who here has gotten a referral, say it's through Messenger, and they're like, hey, this is Dan. He's the greatest coach on the planet. And he helped me do this, this, and this. And he's an absolute killer. You need to talk to him. And that person just never even like replies to the message thread. Right. It's because nobody cares. Like that means nothing, especially with me. People refer me like, hey, Matt's a sales savage. Like, who wants to get on the phone with a guy they know is really good at sales? Like, nobody, right? That's not a comfortable situation for a lot of people. So I say, do you mind if I make a suggestion? And I say, okay, well, do you mind? Do you think it would be appropriate if you just talked about some of the problems that you had and how we'd help you solve a few of those. Do you think that that'd be a good way? And then all of a sudden the referral, or when they speak to the partner, it's like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, and this, and I think that this guy can help me get over that. Right. And the impact that that problem is having, you know what I mean? Hey, I'm really struggling to get my sales right. And that's causing us to not be able to make the amount of money that we need to. So I feel like I need to invest in coaching on that particular matter so that I can provide what we need for the family. But there is an investment attached to that. Do you mind if we talk about it? Yeah, okay, cool. This is why I think we need to do it. And 99 times out of 100, when you present to a supportive partner like that, they're going to be okay with it. I know 100% of the time my wife would, right? And it's the same with a referral, right? So they go out, they speak to the person. Now, all of a sudden, you're a problem solver. You're not just some guy who's really good at something. Make sense to everybody? Okay, perfect. So that's basically like, and then from there, like, that's how you handle the objections. But really what you need to do is like prevention is cure, right? So your script, who here follows the script? Yeah, I know Terry does, right? Because I wrote it for you. All right. Who else? Anyone? Okay, who here is crushing it in sales? Is it the same people? Right? 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 So like scripts are super important, right? You have to follow a script. I didn't follow a script for years and it cost me a metric shitload of money. Okay? So I'll tell you why. So now scripting is like one of those funny things, right? Where like it can sound robotic, but it doesn't have to if you know what you're doing, right? And that's what practice does. What you don't want to do is get so well versed on something where like you're just kind of monotonously rolling, which is why what I teach, for example, is like tonality stuttering, right? And I'll give you an example of that. So if I'm going to say a sentence, right? If I like if if I want to say something super important, then I just stutter heaps like that and it sounds like I don't know what I'm going to say, right? So it sounds like I'm really putting a lot of thought and effort into it, right? And everyone kind of leans in like, what's this guy going to say? Like, you know what I mean? He sounds like he's really thinking about it. So I can have my whole thing scripted out, but then I do stuff like that in between it and it makes it sound like it's all new because you may have had that call 400 times, but it's the first time for them, right? So like do them the courtesy of like, making the illusion like it's your first time too, right? It's just nice. Guys like it, prospects like it, So so scripting is super important. And in scripting, you can pre-handle objections. So how I came up with my script, I'll give you a little background, is I used to open gyms for a living, right? So for quite a big chain, I won't go into them because I don't like them anymore. But anyway, so I used to open gyms for people. And so I would have to make between 150 and 250 sales in 3 to 4 weeks, right? They were between 297 average sale, right? For a 28-day challenge before the gyms were open. So we had to do all the sales over the phone. There were no consults. There were no nothing because they were just piles of rubble. Like they were work sites, right? And so I would get 500 leads and the average I would do is about 200 sales, right? And a lot of the time I would get a team, but the team was like the trainers at the gym and like they'd never sold before. So like I could either spend the time a whole week training them how to do sales or I could just do it all myself. And I just decided to do it all myself pretty much every time. So what I would do is I would just sit on the phone for 8 hours a day and I would just dial leads nonstop. Right. And then after doing that for a while, like I'd done, I've probably done like 8,000 28-day challenge sales, I would say conservatively. And I started to see patterns within what I was doing. And I started to see like sections of like words that I would say that had good outcomes. And so what I would do is I would then put all those sections together, right? And then I would chunk it into like 20%. So 5 stages I would kind of take people through. And I was trying to do the sales in about 20 minutes. That's kind of what the timings that I was trying to get it into. And so what I then did is then, because I had it all chunked down, is then I would try and then take stuff out, like take little bits of sentences, take certain things out so I could have like maximum word economy, right? Because like if you're trying to create, like there's like 100% of people buy 100% on emotion, right? And so we have to sort of take them through like an emotional crescendo point of when we want them to buy up here. right? That doesn't mean happy. That just means like maximum emotion, where we've done all the things, the cost of an action, the future pacing, all that kind of stuff. So I want to buy here. So if I extend that call out, I can't hold that emotion that long. I'm not Tony Robbins, right? I can't sit in front of 23,000 people and then hold their emotion for 4 days, right? I don't have that skill set. So I had to get it nice and short, because I knew that the longer it blew out, the more chance I had of getting a think about it objection, right? Because I would bring up too many problems. And so then what I started to do is, when I knew they were really good, then I started to do things in different orders. So then I just kind of would switch things around, and I would do that for say 30 or 40 calls, and then have a look at the outcomes and then swap it back. And I would do that, right? And over the course of like a year, I created a script that I knew if I picked up the phone and actually got a chance to talk to somebody, about 72% of them would buy, right? So then I had my metrics. And then from there, it was a case of, how do I now do more calls? So I got an auto dialer, and I just started punching, which took it from 1 dial per minute to 4 dials per minute. So I could now do 4 times the volume of calls every single day. Right. And that's how I was able to do, I think my record was like 19 sales in one day or some crap like that. Right. And I think the most I did I think I did 190 in 3 weeks or something like that. Right. And it was simply just because I was like just a little machine where I would get on the phone at 8 a.m. and I would finish at 5 p.m. And it was just dialing nonstop all day. And that's sort of where I got my sales chops. And then from there, it kind of went. But the scripting component is super important, because I started getting all these objections, and I was like, well, if I'm going to get the objection, I might as well pre-handle it. Makes sense, right? And so in my scripts, and as Terry would know, because I've written her scripts, there's a whole section on think about it. Sorry, the whole script is designed to stop think about it. That's the whole script. Because think about it's the one that like it's almost impossible to overcome once it's happened, right? It's very, very difficult, because it's a full like, I'm kind of in and out. Like, it's super hard to latch onto, right? So then I have a whole section on partner. I have a whole section on like money and value and price, and like how we find this in their budget. And then I have a whole section on price shock. Price shock is an objection that isn't an objection, but you know it when you feel it. And that's when somebody is just flabbergasted by how much it costs, right? Now, that has to do with the sophistication of the market, but I think it's something that everybody in fitness is going to have to address, because like in business coaching or sales coaching, like if you come to me, you're probably fairly confident it's not going to be cheap, because teaching you how to make more money is always more expensive than anything else, right? Because of the inherent ROI, so you can get away with it essentially. But things like gyms, a lot of people would go into like Crunch Fitness, and it's $8 a week, and that might be what their framework is, right, of what fitness costs. And then they might just assume that, personal trainers are on salary in the gym. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't know how fitness first works. They don't know the business structure. They don't know you're paying, $400 a week rent, or they don't know that you have, your gym. Like, they just might think it costs the same as fitness first. They don't really there's no like sophistication of the buyer to where they really know what things cost. F45 has actually really helped that, right? Because people kind of know F45 and they know how much it costs, right? So they're helping with that. But in saying that, so what I do is I like to stack the value of what I get, right, to reduce price shock. So it's somewhere in the script I go, hey, do you have much experience in the fitness industry? They'll say yes or no. If they say yes, I go, okay, what is it? If they say they've had a PT, I'll ask them if it was like a PT like at a gym, or if they had like a mate train them. There's a big difference, right? But if they've had a PT before, like, you can probably skip it, because they know what things cost, right? But if they don't have much experience, I go, okay, cool. Do you mind if I just kind of take 2 minutes out of this to kind of explain, I guess, a little bit more about the industry, just so you have some context about why it is we do like what we do? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so it's like, okay, cool. So let's say we're doing small group training at like, say, $100 a week, right? And it's like, okay, so you've got kind of 3 main types of training. You got like your large boot camp, your small group training, what we do, and then you've got like your one-on-one PT, right? All of which are awesome. Team fitness, right? Never ever say anything bad about your competition or other ways of doing things. It just makes us like an asshole, right? So, and then, so I go, okay, so you've got kind of like, you've got your large group training. It's great for fun and fitness, right? So I'm saying good things, but it's not what they want, right? So great for fun and fitness. It's a lot of fun. People go out there, train a group. Yay, all have a good time. It's awesome for someone who really just wants to get out there and get moving. It's nice and cheap and cheerful. It's like $35 a week, Make sense? Yeah, cool. Then on the other spectrum, you've got like one-on-one PT. One-on-one PT is awesome. It's like, the ultimate. You get mad results. It is fairly pricey though. You got to pay for that. So paying like $200-300 a week is just out of the price range of most people, which is why what we tried to do is kind of combine the two together and have like a smaller group training environment, but still kind of get that one-on-one attention. So it just kind of helps everybody. I guess it makes it more manageable. Does that make sense? Yes, sweet. Now, what I've done there is I haven't said what we cost, right? But what I have said is like, this is what you can expect on the high end. This is what you can expect on the low end. And we're smack dab in the middle. So now I've given them like an expectation of what they should be thinking, but also like just from a value expectation. Like if you want cheap and cheerful, go that way. If you want super high end, that's cool. We can probably provide that. It's this way. But for what we're kind of talking about here, it's going to sit somewhere in the middle. So now like their value chain is kind of, it's set for you. Make sense to everybody? Right? Then I'll go into partner. Okay. So I go, okay, cool. And I think like now that I kind of understand what you're looking for, I just kind of want to tie off a few loops just to make sure that what we do might actually work. But I always find that stress is a huge kind of deal for people. And so what we find is that the most common stress for our clients and our members is kind of partner and finances. So like, does your partner know that we're on the call today, or is this a bit of a secret mission? Okay. Let's say the secret mission thing because it breaks the tension. Everyone has a little chuckle, right? You can see everyone do it, right? But it breaks the tension extremely effectively. And then you can say, okay, well, okay, that makes sense. Like, yeah, my partner's supportive. Get them to explain in detail why. Right? Whenever someone's got a good idea, you need to like lock that down with detail. Okay. And whenever someone's got a bad idea, you need to unravel it with questions. Right? So, and I'll explain a bit more about what I mean by that is that, just reading the comments, is that like, if you take someone, and I'll use like a really weird example. Let's say someone is like some crazy Nazi dude, right? Now you have two options, right? You can tell them just to shut up and you can shut them down, right? But it's never going to like, then nobody gets to hear how bad the idea is. Or you can ask them a lot of questions. Chances are that idea that dude has is probably not going to hold much water, right? So if you ask questions to that dude, right? Like, oh, well, tell me about this. But like 3 or 4 questions in, everyone's going to see that it's a moronic way of thinking, right? And it's the same way when you're in sales. If someone's got a bad idea, like if they think they can do it themselves and they know they can't, like you telling them is total garbage and a giant waste of everybody's time, right? But you asking them questions about it and getting it to unravel in their own hand is super powerful, right? It's why debates don't work. It's just 2 people yelling at each other. It doesn't do anything. No one's going to have their mind changed, right? Whereas if you ask questions to people and you make them explain things, like you can unravel a bad idea pretty quickly, right? It's why I'm super annoying to argue with, because I don't get in the tete-a-tete. I just ask loads of questions and all of a sudden it all just comes apart, right? But then if someone's got a really good idea, make them explain in detail and like have really supportive questions like, oh yeah, like why do you feel that way? Okay, that like, yeah, like that makes sense. And so if you do that, like what do you think will happen? Okay, perfect. Right? Really make it tighten up in their fist, because like what do people hate doing more than almost anything? It's contradicting themselves. So if you like really dig in on really good ideas, right? And then you like really solidify those ideas. Hey, like, so do you think your partner's supportive of you learning these skills? Yeah, I really do. Could you just tell me why? Yeah, because he's always there for me. And he goes, okay, has he supported you like this stuff in the past? Yeah, he always has. I've tried things a few times, but he's always been supportive. Okay, so you feel like you guys are on the same team. Absolutely. Okay, that makes sense, right? That's a powerful, like, boom, partner. And so then when I go through all the budget stuff using that FASTER acronym, you guys heard that acronym before? Fast food, alcohol, Starbucks, tobacco, entertainment, restaurant, right? So you just run through those. And then with girls, I do B for beauty, and with guys, I do H for hobby, right? And so go through all that stuff. Like there's no way you can't find $100 a week, right? Like 80% of the time you can find that. So then when you get to the end and they say they want to talk to their partner, again, you reevaluate their want to do it, right? Now you've already got the information. Let's say she spends, $50-$60 a week on just everything, like, Starbucks and beauty and hair. If she gets her hair done once every 12 weeks, like I don't know many girls that don't. It's usually pretty expensive, right? So if you aggregate that back plus all the other costs, there's no way you can't find 50, $60 a week. And then just go, okay, well, I know your partner's supportive and all that kind of stuff. Do you feel it would be reasonable to, I guess, kind of exchange what you're spending over here for what you're spending over here? Do you think that your partner would be okay with that? Well, yeah. Okay, perfect. How would you like to proceed? And just like, it's just a different way of thinking. They go, oh yeah, that makes total sense because I'm not going to be doing that anyway because I'm doing this. Well, yeah. Okay, sweet. And if you go onto YouTube, give me 2 seconds, I'll get you the clip. I have a video of me doing exactly that. It's a $1,500 sale, and you can listen to me do it in real time. And then it's a 40-minute video, just so you know. I'll put it in the chat here. Because I have the sales call, and then I have me stopping, and then telling you exactly why I'm saying what I'm saying, and then what I'm trying to do moving forward. So when I go through all the budget stuff, all the price stuff, all the partner stuff, and then the whole script put together, right? And so then at the end of it, it's really easy to overcome the objections because you've pre-handled pretty much every single one, right? So prevention is really the cure, and that's what scripts provide you, okay? So if you don't have a script, I recommend you get one. If you don't record your calls, I highly recommend you do, because call recordings is probably one of the most effective tools that you can have in order to actually get better, right? I listen to at least one of my own calls every week, and everyone who works for me, I've got a staff, I got like 12 sales guys that work for me. I listen to one of their calls every single week. And that's how they progressively get better and better. And I've got dudes closing like $1 million a month worth of stuff. And so, those sales calls are super expensive to get. The one like the $30,000 sales calls, to get someone on that call is like sometimes $2,000. So you can't afford to close at 20%. That means it would cost $10,000. How can we buy your script? That's a great question, Kurt and Sam. I'm sure I'll talk about it later. No, actually, there's a couple different ways. If you guys want, I'll mention it real quick. I've got like a $50 a week training program, and I gave Dan the link, and I gave a code Dan, all caps DAN, right? And that gives you the first week for $5. It's week to week, cancel anytime. It's got low ticket, high ticket, SOPs. I just put basically everything I do, I put in there, right? And then if you want the coaching, it's a bit different. You can just kind of reach out to me for that. But that's on like a case-by-case basis, because to be honest, I do not have a lot of the time anymore for the one-on-one coaching. The acronym is FASTER, FASTER, which is fast food, alcohol, Starbucks, or stimulants if you want, right? If you're in Sydney, right, you can just put stimulants in there. Right. I had somebody once say they couldn't afford a program, but they spent $300 a week on cocaine. So there you go. And then it's tobacco, entertainment, and restaurants. Right. And sometimes as well, just with that acronym, because of COVID, you need to talk about pre-COVID. Right. Like, I do nothing. And it's like, okay, I understand you're doing nothing right now. However, like, let's go back with the normal world. Right. And because that normal world is going to come at us again fairly quickly, hopefully, let's talk about like your habits over the last 20 years, maybe not the last 20 weeks, right? Because that 20 years is what's got you here, right? And what you need to understand is that every decision everybody has ever made has led them to be exactly where they are. So if you're not happy with what you're doing, if you're not happy with your clout, if they're not happy with your clout, you have to do something about it. Right? And you have to start thinking as the person who's already made the correct choices. Right? And this is probably I only have a few lines that help get over think about it, but I'll tell them to you now. So there's a couple, right? Oh, actually, we'll go over 3 things, right? I'll go over tactical vulnerability at the end. So Dan, if you can remember, so I don't forget, tactical vulnerability. It's a very, very powerful way to get to the bottom of what the hell's going on. Yeah, females is B for beauty, and guys I use hobbies. Right? Like, somebody plays golf, they got money, right? So, okay. So what was I talking about? What did I say, Dan? I got distracted by the chat.
Tactical vulnerability.
Okay, I'll go over that. I'll go over that now, and then I'll go over the other stuff because I'm sure it'll come back to me. Okay, so has anybody ever had a call, and I want you to put your hands up, where like it's just surface level? And you know that like it's plodding along and they're kind of saying all the right things, but it just kind of feels like you're having a casual chat instead of really kind of getting to the problem of the problems, right? We all have, right? So there's a way, those rarely end in sales. Okay. Like if you, so I'm just going to move this because I got a couple of screens there. I'm actually looking at you now. Okay. So, those like surface level conversations, they rarely end in a sale because like, unless the person's just already in, like your marketing has really done its job. You know what I mean? Like really strong marketing makes for weak sales, and really weak marketing makes for really strong sales, right? So, but if that person just isn't, if you're not getting to the bottom, especially with fat loss and fitness, right? Because like it's such an emotional thing. You're asking for things that people just do not want to give up. The first thing is time, because they actually have to they have to add something to their schedule. The next thing is money. They have to pay to do it, right? Then it's not doing things they really enjoy, right? And then it's being in physical pain, right? So just think about the context of what you're asking people to do. It's not just a 28-day challenge for $197. It's stop eating the things you love, right? Or at least limiting some of them. Get up early, or, like come after work, right? Which they haven't been doing. And then, be in pain. Because I don't know if you, but if you've ever taken a year off training and you get back into it, it is rough, right? So we're asking for a lot, essentially. And so we have to get to the bottom of what's really going on in order for it to be really effective, right? And so if you ever feel like you're in that situation, just do like a pattern interrupt. Just go, do you mind if I just stop and just kind of hit the pause button for a minute? They're going to be like, oh, this is weird. Be like, yeah, sure. And be like, I just kind of feel like, um, we're just having a chit chat. And I don't think a chit chat is productive because it's probably not going to help me get to the bottom of why you want to do this. As a coach, like I just kind of have to know why, because there are days that you're going to crush it and it's going to be all high fives and bum taps. And then there are days where you're going to struggle and you're going to be at work. There's going to be chocolate cake coming around or after dinner drinks. And like, those are going to prevent you from achieving your goal. And like, it's on the days that you feel crap. Those are the days like that I'm literally here for. Like the easy days are the easy days, but like you can't have, 150 consecutive easy days. So like, in order for me to get you there, like I have to be able to frame you and get you back on track quickly. So a bad day doesn't become a bad week, become a bad month, become a bad year, become a bad decade, which is what has been happening. Makes sense? Like, yeah. So what I want to do is I want to tell you why I'm a coach. And then hopefully I want to ask you why you want to do this. And hopefully it's a better answer than the stuff that I've been getting so far. Is that you okay with that? Like, okay. And then I proceed to tell has anyone ever heard this, like the nightmare story? Ever heard that term in marketing? Right. It's a very, in VSLs and stuff like that, right? It's a normal term called a nightmare story. It's basically like nobody wants to learn marketing off the guy who has like 4 master's degrees in marketing, right? No one cares. Like, congratulations, dude. You went to university. Like, I can't do that. I'm too old. I can't get 4 degrees, right? Everyone wants to learn off the guy that's done it because he didn't have a choice to not do it. That's who people want to learn off, right? So if you were born with a 6-pack, it might be difficult for you to do this, right? But like for me, I'll tell you my nightmare story and I'll tell you how I tell it. And I've told it a few times, so I'm pretty good at it by now, right? But this is something that is really useful when it comes to actually selling. And so it's people mirror each other, right? So if I convey vulnerability, chances are you will. And this is a genuinely vulnerable story. I do not enjoy telling this story. It actually upsets me, right? And so, and you'll see that, and it's real, right? I'm not putting it on. It's not a nice story to tell, but, and then if I were to then unmute one of you and ask you after telling that story, you would reciprocate that level of vulnerability because I have now earned it, right? Which is one of the reasons why when somebody gives you a goal in the first 2 minutes, you don't prod and poke for 5 minutes trying to get down to the real goal because you haven't earned it. Right? You got to take them through a process. Terry would know. We asked for the goal 3 times. The 3rd time is when you get the real one, right? So I'll tell you this story. I go, okay, this is the reason why I got into fitness, right? I don't know if you guys know, I grew up in the States, right? And then when I was 19, I came back to Australia to join the army, and I was in special operations for 6 or 7 years. I was a sniper. That's where the whole name sales sniper comes from, right? That's why I'm covered in tattoos and swear a lot, right? So when I was young, I was quite fat, right? And because I grew up in the States, and my parents, God bless them, a lot of very good qualities, but passing on good food and exercise habits was not one of them, right? You know, I had unlimited Cokes, unlimited white bread, handy snacks, Nutella, you name it. When I was a kid, I just ate what I wanted, right? And so I remember it very distinctly. I was 12 years old, and I was in the shower, and I looked down, and I had this belly, and I remember grabbing it and like going, why do I have this? And trying to like rip it off my body. I didn't know. I didn't understand. I went to school, and other kids weren't fat, and we all seemed to eat the same thing at school, right? We all had the same lunches and stuff like that. So I was like, I thought it was like the lot in life that I was given. And it was super upsetting because I just had no idea why. And and I and then like when I got older, I joined the military, and then I got into fitness then because like kind of had to. But even then, like, you know, I was in good shape, but like most of the guys that were in my teams were like jacked, and we all worked out the same. And I didn't really understand why I wasn't like had a mad 8 pack, right? And then I got into fitness when I got out because I didn't really have any other skills. Like I had been trained from day one in special operations, and the only other courses I did were like medicine and sniping, and radios, and like, you know, there's not a huge um, demand for people who can shoot people at 2K, right, in the civilian market. And so I had a mate who's a personal trainer. He's like, hey, come learn under me, and I was like, sweet. So I did that, and then I started to learn about, oh, okay, like this is some of the reasons why. And then I met my wife. My wife grew up in a house where they really valued education around like training and healthy food. So like, and I started to like, for the first few years we were together, I was like, God, she can eat anything she wants. It's so unfair. We go on a holiday, I put on 5 kilos, she puts on none. And then she was like, no, dickhead, like you just make terrible choices. And I'm like, what do you mean? And it was because her defaults were like a bottle of water, um, and like fruit. And my defaults were like Coca-Cola and like pizza. Those are like my default foods that like I would default back to every time, right? I could eat healthy, but then I would just default back to these behaviors that had been instilled in me when I was a child. And then when we like really, when I realized that, I was like, oh shit, like those were put into me. I didn't ask for that. And so like I made a conscious decision there and then. I was like, I will not allow my kids to grow up with the struggles that I have around food because I fucking hate it. I hate the fact that like I want to eat Coke, I have Coke every single time I have a meal. Like I have crazy intense sugar cravings every single time I eat, right? Because like for my entire adolescence and formative periods in life, I was allowed to do it. And that's a behavior that was given to me totally unwittingly. And when I became a trainer and I realized that, I was like, if I can stop like parents or potential parents from passing that shit onto their kids, like I'm doing something good. And so that's the real reason why I was such a passionate person and why I decided to get good at selling, is because I was fucking sick and tired of seeing people like in pain, right? And they just couldn't get around it because they were given these behaviors and these habits by like unwittingly by their parents or by their partners or whoever it was. And so I needed to learn a way that I could get around this because those habits are only going to be passed on down the chain. And so that's why I became a coach, and that's why I like doing sales, and that's why. So like, why the fuck do you want to do it? Right. And I do swear when I say that because it adds a little bit of emphasis, but that's like my nightmare story. Right. And that's like, that's what drives me to like, that's why I like fitness. And like, I don't do, to tell you the truth, I don't do a heap of stuff in the fitness journey anymore. I just sort of do sales. My wife's got a personal training program that helps parents. Right. It's what it's designed for. Because like we're super passionate about, but like everyone's got a story like that or something similar. You just have to like figure it out. And that's what drives you, and that's what your why is, right? There's that Simon Sinek, you know, everyone heard of him, right? He's like, what is your why guy? And that's kind of like that emotional driver behind the why you do the things that you do. Like, why do you want to be a good parent? Why do you want to be fit? Why do you want your business to succeed? Because like when you understand your why, like your how is easier because you're walking to or within your own purpose, right? And if you're walking to or in your purpose, like it's much easier to motivate yourself to actually do the things that you have to do to get it done because your circumstances don't change what actually has to be done, right? You're a single mom who wants to lose weight. I'm sorry. that's difficult, but it doesn't change what you have to do to actually lose the weight. You know, it's same sort of thing. So like, and that story, like, it's vulnerable and it's real and it's true and people can tell that. And then if I then ask that person, like, why do you really want to lose weight? They're going to tell me the real reason. And that's going to help me not only sell them, but it's going to help me actually create a change in them that hopefully lasts enough for them to get a result. And if we can create like even a false motivation for 4 weeks, right? They start to get the result. What will keep them motivated moving forward is the feeling of achieving the result. And then hopefully we can turn habits into rituals. Make sense? Any questions? No? Feel free. So guys, like, that's basically what I have for you today. I'm sure I could talk about other stuff, but otherwise I'll just rattle on for ages. If you guys want to learn more, I think Dan will put some stuff. I'll put this.
I'll put it in the chat. So let's one thing that we didn't come, I think this was the open loop, Matt, that you when we started going through the chat was,
oh yeah,
could we talk about the overcoming the think about it objection?
Yeah, for sure. So that's one way. Getting somebody's real why is a good way, because you can pretty much, like, sort of, I guess, challenge them. The whole script and the whole call needs to be going over cost of inaction, right? And really, I guess, getting to the core of why they need to act. So that's first and foremost, right? The next thing you have to do is, like, I have a few lines. And so one of the lines is about perspective. And I pretty much kind of told this. But basically, it's like, so I guess, do you feel that your mindset has, I guess, has just, like, I guess, dictated your decision-making process? Like, do you feel like it has an effect on your decision-making process? And they're going to say yes, obviously. And you go, okay, well, are you 100% happy with the outcomes in the situation that you're in? And they're going to say no, right? Because that's why they're on the call. And be like, okay, so do you want to allow that decision-making process to dictate your life and your results moving forward? Because, like, every decision that you have made has led you to be exactly right here. So, like, if you're going to allow the same, I always think about it, I always do this, like, then you're always going to be in the exact same situation that you're in right now. And so if you want to start being the guy that you want to be, you have to start making decisions like that guy. And that guy makes decisions and makes them well. And so, you've got to make a choice. Either start making decisions as if you're already there, or, keep making decisions in the exact same way that you always have, which has led you to be in a position that you're not happy with. It's up to you. So that's one. The second is similar, and I'll usually flow on from that. I was like, if you're standing on the beach, like, the horizon is 17.1 nautical miles away, right? And so, like, that's all the world you can see. If you're on flat land, like, you can see 17 miles away. Now, that 17 miles is your life. Like, that's where you're at. And you want that to be different. So the guy on the mountain can see a hell of a lot further. But the guy on the beach has made the decisions to keep him on the beach. The guy on the mountain has made the decisions to put the boots on and walk up the hill. Like, it's hard work. So if you want to be the guy who can see everything from the mountaintop, like, you have to put in the work and make the same choices that guy has made. So, like, start making decisions based off where you want to be. Don't keep making decisions based off where you are, because if you do, that's the only place you'll ever be. So those are kind of like my last ditch analogies, I guess, to try and get people to say that, like, it's their thinking that's kind of broken, because if somebody is really overweight, like, those are the hardest people to sell into fitness, because, like, they have a broken decision-making process, right? Like, you really do. Like, if you're overweight, you have terrible decisions around food and exercise. It's just the way it is, right? If you're broke, you make bad decisions around money, right? If you've had 3 divorces, you make bad decisions around relationships, right? That's just the way it is, right? Now, that might not be your fault, and we don't want to vilify the person. We want to vilify the behavior, because a lot of the time those behaviors were given to them by other people. right? And it's not your fault, but it is your problem, and you have to fix it, right? Coolio.
Thanks, Matt. That was phenomenal. I love that that story at the end. Just really, really, really powerful, man. So I have shared Matt's details in the chat, guys. So I am part of this program. I am part of his membership program. It's $50 a week, but it's only $5 for you guys for the first week. Dive in, have a look. And if you enjoyed that last hour, then you're going to enjoy a lot more of Matt's resources. He is just a wealth of information. He's got great scripts, great knowledge, and there's a lot of support as well. So take advantage of that. Dude, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and thank you for sharing with this incredible crew. And they will give you a little air round of applause, guys. Show your appreciation to Matt.
Thanks, guys. Alrighty. Awesome, guys. Well, you have a good day. Feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. It's just Matt Ryder. You can see that sign in the background, so it's pretty easy to see. So that's my profile pic. I do heaps of content on there as well. I'm one of those guys. So if you don't want it, don't friend me. All right. All right, guys. Have a good day. I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Matt. See you, bud.
Bye.